The crosshairs sat perfectly centered on the human's temple. Kiraveth watched through her scope as the enemy commander walked through the ruins of what had been a Velorian outpost, seemingly unaware that 12 snipers held his life in their hands. Her finger rested on the trigger, steady as always. "Hold," came the whisper through her neural link. "Command wants him alive." Kiraveth didn't question orders. She never did. That was why she was the youngest marksman to achieve the rank of First Shadow in the Velorian military. Obedience without hesitation, precision without emotion. The human stopped walking. He knelt beside something in the rubble, and Kiraveth adjusted her magnification. A child. Velorian, no more than 6 cycles old, trapped beneath collapsed stone. The human began digging with his bare hands. "Sniper 4, what is he doing?" Command demanded. "Unknown. He appears to be attempting rescue operations. The target is extracting a Velorian civilian." Silence on the neural link. Then, continue observation. For 3 hours, Kiraveth watched through her scope as Commander Marcus Chen, according to Coalition intelligence, one of the most dangerous tactical minds in the human fleet, worked himself bloody pulling a child from wreckage. When Velorian reinforcements finally arrived, he placed the unconscious child in their medic's arms and raised his hands in surrender. He looked directly at the ridge where she was hidden, met her scope as if he could see through it, and smiled. 2 months later, the war ended. Not with humanity's defeat, but with an unprecedented armistice. The Coalition and Velorian Empire would attempt peace, and to cement it, prisoners would be exchanged along with something Kiraveth had never heard of: companion assignments. "You will be assigned to a human officer," her superior explained, his frills flat with barely concealed disgust. "A show of good faith. You will serve as his military liaison and cultural ambassador." Serve? The word tasted wrong. For how long? Until the Council deems the alliance stable. Years, perhaps. Decades. Kiraveth's secondary eyelids flickered, the only sign of her distress. "I am a sniper, Commander. First Shadow. I am not trained for... You are trained to follow orders." His voice cut sharp. "And this is an order. Report to the human vessel, A Prometheus, by 600. You are now property of the peace." Property. The word followed her as she gathered her few possessions. Her rifle they took. Her rank insignia. Even her family token. A small crystal that held the recorded voices of parents she barely remembered. All that remained was her uniform, stripped of military markers, and a datapad containing her new duties. Companion. Cultural liaison. She was a weapon being resheathed in silk. The Prometheus was chaos in metal form. Humans moved through corridors without the precise formations Kiraveth was accustomed to, their voices loud, their laughter frequent. They looked at her as she passed, not with hatred, which she had expected, but with something worse: curiosity. A young officer escorted her to quarters that were larger than anything she'd occupied since childhood. "Commander Chen will meet with you in an hour. There's food in the synthesizer, and if you need anything, I need nothing." The officer's expression shifted in a way Kiraveth couldn't read. "Right. Well, welcome aboard." Alone, she stood in the center of the room and did not move. The walls were wrong colors. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and something organic. Plants, perhaps, though she saw none. Everything was engineered for human comfort, and she was acutely aware that she was not human. Exactly 1 hour later, her door chimed. She opened it to find Commander Marcus Chen standing in the corridor. No guards, no weapons visible. The same man she had held in her crosshairs. He was shorter than she expected, his dark hair streaked with gray at the temples, his eyes holding a weight that had nothing to do with age. "Kiraveth," he said. Not a question. "Commander Chen, Marcus Teo." He stepped inside without waiting for invitation, looked around the quarters, and frowned. "They gave you the formal suite. Cold as hell in here. Do you need the temperature adjusted?" "I require nothing." He studied her for a long moment. "You were on that ridge 2 months ago. Outpost Kethran." Every muscle in her body went rigid. "I was. 12 snipers. I counted the glints." He moved to the viewport, looking out at stars she didn't recognize. "But you were the one who could have taken the shot. The angle, the distance. The others were backup. You were the real threat. I had orders to hold. You had a finger on the trigger." He turned to face her. "I saw you adjust your position twice. The first time was tactical. The second time..." He paused. "You moved to get a cleaner shot. You wanted to take it." Kiraveth said nothing. "Why didn't you?" "I follow orders, Commander." "Marcus," he corrected again, and something in his voice was almost gentle. And that's not what I asked. Your orders were to hold unless I made a threatening move. I was digging. My back was turned. You could have claimed I reached for a weapon. No one would have questioned the shot. The silence stretched. Kiraveth thought of the child, the small blue-scaled face she had watched him cradle. The way his hands had bled against the stone. You were not a threat, she finally said. Killing without threat is not precision. It is waste. Chen, Marcus, smiled then. The same smile he had given the Ridge. You know what the Coalition calls your kind. They call you the ghosts of Velor. Silent death from impossible distance. They say you're bred without emotion, trained to kill from the moment you can hold a rifle. This is accurate. No, he said quietly. It isn't. Accuracy is your specialty, Kiraveth. And you chose not to be accurate that day. He moved toward the door, then paused. Breakfast is at 700 in the officer's mess. You're expected. I am a liaison. I'm not an officer. You're whatever I say you are on this ship. His voice hardened, just slightly. And I say you're eating breakfast with me tomorrow. That's not a request. After he left, Kiraveth stood at the viewport for a long time. She counted the stars, calculated distances, estimated trajectories. Old habits. The mathematics of death. But her hands, she noticed, were trembling. The officer's mess fell silent when Kiraveth entered. 24 humans turned to look at her, some hostile, some merely wary. She had been briefed on human expressions, but the variety was overwhelming. Velorians showed displeasure through frill position and scale color. Humans used their entire faces, constantly, involuntarily. Over here. Marcus's voice cut through the tension. He was seated at a corner table, alone, a tray of food in front of him. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. Kiraveth walked through the room with her back straight, feeling every eye track her movement. A sniper knew what it was to be watched. But this was different. This was being prey. Ignore them, Marcus said as she sat. Half of them lost friends in the war. The other half were just curious. And you? I lost friends too. He pushed a second tray toward her, but I've learned that holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. Human saying. The food was unfamiliar. Soft textures where Velorians preferred crisp, sweet flavors where her palate expected salt. She ate anyway. A sniper ate when food was available. You're efficient, Marcus observed. That's good. That's good. We ship out in 6 hours. To where? The frontier. There's a joint operation. Coalition and Velorian forces working together for the first time. A pirate syndicate has been hitting supply lines. We're going to stop them. Kiraveth's secondary eyelids flickered. I am a liaison. I am not cleared for combat operations. You were a sniper. First shadow, if my intelligence is correct. That means you're one of the best marksmen in Velorian space. Marcus leaned forward. I'm not bringing you along as a translator. I'm bringing you because I need someone who can shoot. You have your own snipers. I do. But none of them know Velorian terrain, Velorian tactics, or how to coordinate with a Velorian unit. He held her gaze. This is a test, Kiraveth. For both our peoples. If we can't work together against pirates, we'll never survive what's coming from the Outer Rim. She had heard the rumors. Something vast and hostile moving through the dark between galaxies. Something that would make the Coalition Velorian War look like a border skirmish. You wish me to kill for you, she said. I wish you to fight beside me. There's a difference, is there? Marcus was silent for a moment. Then, when you held me in your scope, did you want to kill me? The question was unexpected. Kiraveth considered lying. A sniper was trained in misdirection, but found she didn't want to. Yes. You were the enemy. Killing the enemy is what I was made for. And now you are something else. She didn't have a word for what he was. Not enemy. Not commander, not truly. Not friend, certainly. He was a puzzle with pieces that didn't fit any pattern she knew. Something else, Marcus repeated. I can work with that. The frontier was exactly as chaotic as the Coalition vessel, but in different ways. The joint base was a converted asteroid, half its corridors built for human dimensions, half for Velorian. The result was a maze of mismatched sections that made Kiraveth's spatial awareness ache. She was assigned quarters near Marcus's, close enough that she could hear him moving at night, his footsteps uneven with exhaustion. He slept little, she noticed. Often she heard him wake, gasping, then the sound of pacing until dawn. Does he always suffer night terrors? She asked Lieutenant Commander Torres, Marcus's second. Torres's expression shifted, surprise, then something harder. That's not your business, Ghost. My designation is Kiraveth. Your designation is whatever we give you. Torres stepped closer, using her height advantage. I don't know what game Command is playing putting you next to him. But I'm watching. One wrong move, Sarah. Marcus's voice was quiet, but it stopped Torres mid-threat. He stood in the corridor behind them, his face unreadable. Don't you have weapon checks to oversee? Torres held Kira Eveth's gaze for a long moment, then nodded curtly and left. She cares for you, Kira Eveth observed. She doesn't trust you. There's a difference. Marcus gestured for her to follow, briefing in 10. The Velorian commander is here. The Velorian commander was first-scale Velorian, a massive specimen with battle-scarred frills and the cold eyes of a veteran. He looked at Kira Eveth once, dismissively, and then ignored her entirely. The briefing was straightforward. The pirate syndicate operated from a moon in the system's outer ring. Their base was heavily fortified, but recent intelligence suggested a vulnerability in their eastern approach. A coordinated assault. Velorians from the west, humans from the east would catch them in a pincer. And the ghost? Velorian's voice was sharp. What is her role in this? Overwatch, Marcus said. She'll coordinate fire between our sniper teams, make sure we're not shooting each other. Velorian's frills twitched. A first shadow reduced to coordination. How fitting. Kira Eveth said nothing. A sniper knew when to be invisible. After the briefing, Marcus found her in the armory. She was examining the rifles available, all human manufacture, all subtly wrong for her grip. He doesn't respect you, Marcus said. He shouldn't. I am a liaison now. A gesture of peace. She set down a rifle that was too heavy in the stock. Gestures do not earn respect. No, Toon. They don't. He picked up the rifle she had rejected, examined it, and then reached into a case behind him. What he withdrew made her breath catch. A Velorian long rifle. 3rd generation, the kind issued to First Shadows and no one else. Her model, her calibration, her eye. Took some doing to acquire, Marcus said, holding it out to her. Had to call in about 6 favors, but I figured if you're going to coordinate sniper fire, you should probably have an actual weapon. Kira Eveth took the rifle. It settled into her hands like memory. Every curve familiar, every weight perfect. This is why? Because tomorrow we're going into combat, and I want every advantage. He paused. And because you're more than a gesture. You just haven't figured that out yet. He left her there, holding a piece of her former life, feeling something dangerous stir in her chest. It felt, she realized with distant alarm, like hope. The assault went wrong within the first hour. Coalition and Velorian intelligence had both missed the secondary force, a mercenary fleet that emerged from the moon's shadow as the ground assault began. Suddenly the pincer became a trap, with both forces caught in crossfire. Kira Eveth was positioned on a ridge 3 kilometers from the main engagement when she heard Marcus's voice in her earpiece, strained with contained panic. Sniper 3, I need cover fire at grid 77. We've got incoming. The channel dissolved into static. Through her scope she watched the eastern approach turn to chaos. Human soldiers scrambled for cover as mercenary heavy weapons tore through their positions. The Velorian advance had stalled, pinned down by a force that outnumbered them 3-1. And in the middle of it all, she found Marcus. He was dragging a wounded soldier toward cover, completely exposed. Enemy fire tracking toward him. Kira Eveth didn't think. She adjusted, calculated wind and distance, and trajectory in the space between heartbeats, and fired. The mercenary gunner dropped. Another took his place. She fired again. Who the hell? Torres's voice crackled through. Sniper 6, identify. First Shadow Kira Eveth. She fired again, and again, each shot precise, each target falling. Providing cover fire for Commander Chen. Grid 77 is stabilizing. Ghost, that's Coalition sector. You're not cleared. She's cleared, Marcus cut in, breathing hard. She's cleared, Sarah. Let her work. Kira Eveth worked. For 37 minutes he held the eastern ridge alone, her rifle singing death into the chaos below. Her shoulder ached. Her secondary eyelids struggled to clear the dust. But every time a threat moved toward Marcus's position, she ended it. When the reinforcements finally arrived and the mercenaries retreated, she had expended 64 rounds. 64 targets eliminated. 0 misses. That night Marcus found her cleaning her rifle in the armory. His arm was in a sling. He had taken shrapnel pulling the wounded soldier to safety, but his eyes were alert, searching. 64? Confirmed kills, he said. In 37 minutes. Torres says it's the most impressive shooting she's ever seen. Torres does not like me. Torres respects you now. There's a difference. He sat across from her, watching her hands work. You saved a lot of lives today, including mine. That is my function. No. His voice was quiet but firm. No, it isn't. Your function, according to the Council, is cultural liaison. Pretty words and diplomatic niceties. What you did today was a choice. Kiravith's hand stilled on her rifle. You gave me a weapon. I gave you an option. You decided what to do with it. He leaned forward, close enough that she could smell the antiseptic on his bandages. Why? You could have stayed on that ridge and done nothing. Coordinated fire like you were ordered. No one would have blamed you for not engaging. She thought about the question. A sniper was trained to understand motivation. It helped predict target behavior. But her own motivations had become unfamiliar territory. I watched you, she finally said. Through my scope. At Outpost Kethran, I watched you bleed for a child who was not your species. Today I watched you take shrapnel for a soldier under your command. She met his eyes. You do not behave like an enemy, Marcus Chen. You behave like something else. Something else again. He smiled, and this time it looked tired. Raw. We keep coming back to that. Perhaps because I do not have words for what you are. Then we'll make new words. He stood, swaying slightly from exhaustion or blood loss or both. Get some sleep, Kiravith. Tomorrow the real work starts. She watched him leave, her rifle still in her hands. 64 kills today. All to keep one human alive. A sniper understood mathematics. This equation made no sense. But she was beginning to suspect that sense was not the point. 3 months on the frontier changed things. Kiravith learned to read human faces, the micro-expressions that telegraphed fear, anger, joy. She learned that Marcus drank his coffee black when he was stressed, and with sugar when he was content. She learned that Torres's hostility was actually protection, a shield around her commander born from 2 decades of shared service. She learned that she was no longer invisible. Ghost saved our asses again. The words drifted from a card game in the mess, casual, unself-conscious. Took out that sniper nest before Chen's squad even knew they were targeted. She's got eyes like nothing I've seen. 4 kills at 2,000 meters, in that wind. Heard the commander calls her his scope. Like she's part of his kit. Kiravith had stopped in the corridor listening. Part of his kit. The phrase should have felt diminishing. A tool, an object. But the way they said it carried weight. Respect. Something like pride. You're eavesdropping. Marcus's voice came from behind her. She didn't startle. She had heard him approach. I am observing. And what have you observed? Your soldiers are accepting me. My soldiers are recognizing competence. There's a difference. He fell into step beside her, walking nowhere in particular. It had become a habit, these aimless walks through corridors, talking or not talking. Also, they're Giri soldiers now. Join command. Congratulations, you've been promoted. I was not informed of any promotion. I'm informing you now. Lieutenant designation, liaison capacity extended to tactical advisor. He glanced at her. Velorian objected, of course. Said first shadows aren't meant for command roles. He is correct. We are trained to operate alone. And yet, Marcus stopped at a viewport, looking out at the stars. You've integrated better than any liaison I've worked with. You coordinate with human squads, adjust to our communication styles, anticipate our weaknesses. Last week you redesigned our patrol rotations and cut incident rates by 40%. Pattern recognition. It is a sniper skill. It's a leadership skill. He turned to face her. The Council sends us their most controlled, most obedient weapon, expecting her to be a symbol. Instead, she becomes essential. Kiravith was silent. The words settled strangely, like foreign objects in her chest. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. Because tomorrow, I'm taking a team into the contested zone, and I want you with me. Not as Overwatch. As second in command. The contested zone. 3 systems where coalition, Velorian, and independent forces all claimed territory. It was the most dangerous region in known space, a place where the fragile peace could shatter at any moment. That violates 17 regulations, Kiravith said. I've already filed the exemption requests. The Council will not approve. The Council already has. His expression shifted, became something she had learned to recognize as determination. Kiravith, there's something moving in the zone. Intelligence reports keep going dark. Ships disappear without distress calls. Whatever's out there, it's not pirates. And it's not territorial disputes. The threat from the Outer Rim. Maybe. Or something we haven't seen yet. He held her gaze. I need someone I trust to watch my back. Someone who sees what others miss. Trust. The word hung between them. You trust me, she said, not quite a question. I've trusted you since Outpost Kethran. I just didn't know it yet. You did not know me at Outpost Kethran. I knew enough. His voice softened. I knew you had every reason to take the shot, and every opportunity. And you chose not to. I knew that when I looked at that ridge, I was looking at someone who could kill me, and decided there was another option. He paused. That's enough for trust. Kiravith thought about the moment. The crosshairs. The trigger. The choice she hadn't fully understood at the time. I will accompany you to the contested zone, she said. Good. Marcus started walking again, but his pace was slower now, almost reluctant. There's something else you should know. Before we ship out. Yes, the mission parameters. They're unusual. He stopped, seemed to struggle with words. Coalition Command believes the Velorian Council may be responsible for the disappearances. Some kind of weapons test. Using the zone as cover. Kiraveth's frills went rigid. You believe my people are murdering ships? I believe something is murdering ships, and I want to find out what. He faced her fully. I'm telling you this because you have the right to know. Because if we find Velorian involvement, you'll have to choose. Choose what? Whether you're still Velorian, or whether you're something else. There it was again. Something else. The concept that had followed her since the beginning. Shapeless and persistent. I will not betray my people, she said. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me find the truth. His hand moved as if to reach for her, then stopped. Whatever that truth is, we'll face it together. Together. Another word that settled strangely. Rest, Marcus said quietly. We leave at 600. He walked away, and Kiravith stood at the viewport, counting stars. But this time, she wasn't calculating trajectories. She was wondering when something else had started to feel like home. The contested zone was silence made physical. Their ship, a fast cruiser called the Yi Whisper, dropped out of hyperspace into a field of debris. Kiravith recognized Coalition hull fragments, Velorian engine casings, and something else. Metal that was neither. What the hell happened here? Torres whispered. Marcus was at the sensor station, face grim. This was a convoy. 12 ships. They went dark 6 days ago. Combat? The question came from Specialist UN, their communications officer. No, Dwight. Marcus pulled up the scan data. Look at the debris pattern. No weapon signatures. No evidence of explosion. It's like something just took them apart. Kiraveth moved to the viewport, studying the wreckage through her scope's magnification. Marcus, what do you see? The cuts. They're precise. Mathematical. Like, she struggled for the word. Like surgery. Salvage operation? No. Nothing is missing. The cargo containers are intact, just separated. She adjusted her focus. Whatever did this was not interested in resources. It was interested in understanding, taking apart to see how things work. The bridge went quiet. That's not a Velorian method, Torres said slowly. No, Kiraveth's frills were flat against her skull. It is not. A signal burst through the static, faint, desperate, repeating. This is Research Vessel Meridian. Please. Anyone, we're trapped. They're here. They're... The signal cut off. Marcus was already moving. Helm. Trace that signal. Full burn. Sir, regulations say. I know what regulations say, Lieutenant. I also know there are people alive out there. He caught Kiraveth's eye. You with me? She was already checking her rifle. Always. They found the Yi Meridian adrift in an asteroid field. Its lights flickering like a dying heartbeat. Something was attached to its hull. A structure of dark metal and organic curves that Kiraveth had never seen in any database. Life signs, Marcus demanded. 12. Concentrated in the forward compartment. Ewan's voice shook. Sir, there are other readings too. Lots of them. Moving. How many? I can't... They don't scan like anything in our systems. 40? Maybe more. They're all over the ship. Marcus looked at Torres, at Kiraveth, at the 8 other soldiers who had volunteered for this mission. Rescue operation. We go in fast, grab the survivors, and get out. No engagement unless necessary. And if engagement becomes necessary, Torres asked, then we engage. He checked his weapon, but we don't know what we're dealing with. Kiraveth, you're with me on point. Your eyes are better in low light. The docking was rough. The Meridian systems were barely functional, but they made it. The airlock opened onto darkness, the emergency lighting casting red shadows across walls that were wrong. The walls were moving. Biotech, Kiraveth breathed. The alien structure has integrated with the ship's systems. Is it hostile? Unknown. But it is... aware. She could feel something at the edge of her perception, a pressure that wasn't quite sound. It knows we are here. They moved in tactical formation, Kiraveth's enhanced vision picking out details the humans missed. Here. Drag marks where crew had been taken. There. A pattern of marks that might have been writing, or might have been something else entirely. Everywhere. The slow pulse of something alive. The forward compartment was a barricaded nightmare. Survivors had piled furniture, equipment, anything they could find against the door. When Marcus announced their presence, it took 20 minutes to convince them to open up. 12 crew members, scientists mostly, their eyes too wide, and their hands shaking. The captain, Dr. Sarah Vance, spoke in broken sentences. Came out of nowhere. Attached to the hull. We thought it was a life form, trying to communicate. We were wrong and... What happened? It absorbed the first contact team. Not killed. Absorbed a... We could hear them talking, from inside it. Saying it was beautiful. Saying we should let it in. Kiraveth's frills rippled. A parasitic intelligence? No. Something worse. Dr. Vance met her eyes. Scientist to scientist. It's not parasitic. It's... curious. It wants to understand us. And its method of understanding is... Andaman. Complete. A sound echoed through the ship. Something between a song and a scream. It knows we're taking you, Marcus said. Everyone move. Now. They ran. The corridors that had been empty were no longer empty. Shapes emerged from walls, from floors, from the darkness itself. They were wrong. Limbs that bent in too many directions. Surfaces that shifted between solid and liquid. Eyes that weren't eyes but somehow saw. Kiraveth fired. The shot hit center mass, and the creature didn't fall. It rippled, absorbing the impact. And then it smiled with a mouth that hadn't existed a moment before. No effect, she reported, already adjusting aim. Conventional weapons are, fall back, Taurus, cover fire, UN, get those survivors to the airlock. The retreat was chaos. Kiraveth fired again and again, not to kill but to slow, each shot buying seconds. The creatures didn't attack directly. They reached, grasped, tried to attouch. Any soldier they touched stopped fighting, their expressions going slack. Their voices joining the ship's song. They lost 2 people before reaching the airlock. Hendricks and Morozov, both good soldiers, both now standing in the corridor with empty eyes and mouths that spoke in harmony with the alien presence. Let us show you, they said together. Let us help you understand. Seal it. Marcus shouted. Seal the goddamn airlock. The doors closed. The ship detached. Behind them, the Ymiridian pulsed with dark light, and somewhere in that light, 2 humans were learning what it meant to be understood. The debrief was held in a sealed room, with only Marcus, Torres, Kiraveth, and Fleet Admiral Chen. Marcus's mother, as it turned out, which explained his tactical instincts and his stubborn disregard for regulations. Preliminary analysis suggests an extragalactic origin, the Admiral said, reviewing the data. The organic technology is unlike anything in Coalition or Velorian records. The Outer Rim threat, Marcus said. It's not a threat. It's an explorer. An explorer that has killed over 200 personnel in the past month. Not killed. Kiraveth spoke carefully, still processing what they had witnessed, absorbed. Integrated. The creatures we encountered showed signs of previously absorbed life forms. Different species, different technologies, all functioning as a single entity. A hive mind? Something more complex. Collective of understanding. She struggled with the concept. They do not wish to destroy. They wish to annoy. Their method is simply total. Admiral Chen leaned back. And you believe they'll continue? I believe they've only begun. The room was silent. We need to make contact, Marcus said. Real contact. On our terms. Commander, those things are intelligent. Curious. Maybe even reasonable. He stood pacing. We've spent centuries assuming that alien contact would be hostile because we project our own worst impulses onto the unknown. But what if this species simply has a fundamentally different approach to communication? An approach that involves consuming other beings. An approach that involves a complete understanding. Yes, it's horrifying by our standards. But to them, it might be the highest form of respect. He stopped, looked at Kiraveth. When the Velorian Council assigned liaisons to human commanders, what was the purpose? To build understanding between our peoples. And if your people had the ability to simply absorb human consciousness, to know everything we know, feel everything we feel, do you think they would have used it? Kiraveth considered. The Velorian Council was pragmatic, often ruthless. In the war, they had deployed weapons of terrible efficiency. But absorption? The complete dissolution of individual identity? No, she said. Because understanding without consent is violation. Knowledge taken is not wisdom earned. Exactly. Marcus faced his mother. We can't fight these beings. We've seen what happens when we try. But maybe we can teach them. Teach them what? That there's another way to understand. That you don't have to consume someone to know them. He paused. That connection doesn't require dissolution. Admiral Chen studied her son for a long moment. Then she looked at Kiraveth. And you, First Shadow? What is your assessment? Kiraveth thought about the question. She thought about Outpost Kethrin, and the crosshairs, and the choice she had made. She thought about 3 months of walking corridors with Marcus, learning to read human faces, learning that something else could be a destination rather than a direction. Connection is possible between very different beings, she said. I am evidence of this, but it requires patience. It requires both parties willing to be changed. She met the Admiral's gaze. It requires lowering the weapon. The plan was insane. Even Marcus admitted this, though he argued that insanity was relative. They would return to the contested zone in a single ship. They would approach the alien presence, now designated Entity Omega by Coalition intelligence, and attempt communication. Not with weapons raised, but with an offer. They want to understand, Marcus explained to the volunteer crew. We're going to give them understanding, on our terms. The terms involved neural link technology, hastily modified by a joint Coalition Velorian engineering team. A way to share memories, experiences, consciousness itself. Like a conversation, Dr. Van said. She had volunteered despite her trauma, insisting that someone who had experienced the entity's presence should be part of the contact team. Instead of them taking everything, we offer specific exchanges. A dialogue rather than consumption. And if they reject the offer, then we die. Marcus shrugged. A gesture Kiraveth had learned to recognize as false casualness. But we die trying to build a bridge instead of burning one. I can live with that. You cannot live with death, Kiraveth observed. It's a human expression. It is a nonsensical human expression. Most of them are. He smiled, and the smile was real this time, reaching his eyes. You ready for this? She thought about the question. Ready to face an incomprehensible entity. Ready to possibly die. Ready to attempt something no sniper had ever been trained for. No, she admitted. Good. Good. Neither am I. He held out his hand, palm up. A gesture she had learned was an offer of connection. Let's be unready together. She placed her hand in his. His skin was warm, rougher than Velorian scales, strange and familiar at once. Together, she agreed. The entity Omega found them before they found it. The E-Whisperin was traveling through the debris field when the darkness shifted, revealing something vast. Not a ship. Not a creature. Something between and beyond both. A structure of living geometry that defied the eye's attempt to comprehend it. And at its heart, visible through surfaces that were somehow transparent, people. Hundreds of them. Human Velorian species Kiraveth didn't recognize. All standing in perfect stillness, all looking outward with expressions of profound peace. We hear you, a voice said, speaking through the ship's communication system in perfect Coalition standard. You wish to understand. We wish to offer understanding, Marcus replied. An exchange. Mutual. Control. Silence. The entity shifted, contemplating. You offer pieces. We seek wholeness. Wholeness can't be taken. It can only be built. Marcus stepped forward, toward the view screen, toward that incomprehensible presence. You have absorbed hundreds of beings, and yet you're still seeking. Still curious. Why? Absorption reveals function, not meaning. We understand how your minds work. We do not understand why. Kiraveth spoke, surprising herself. Meaning cannot be absorbed. It must be shared. The entity's attention shifted to her. She felt it like a weight, like the pressure of 1,000 scopes aimed at her heart. You are different. Your kind has connection in their nature. 2 minds, one side data. The bond of First Shadow scanned. She hadn't known they knew. The First Shadow training involved neural pairing, 2 snipers sharing perception, one as observer, one as shooter. A temporary fusion that allowed for impossible precision. Yes, she said. We understand connection, but our connection has boundaries. Lines we do not cross. Lines are limitations. Lines are protection. For ourselves, and for each other. She stepped beside Marcus close enough that their shoulders touched. When I first saw this human, I held his life in my hands. I could have taken it. Instead, I chose to lower my weapon. To give him the chance to become something else. Something else. Yes. Something I did not expect. Something I could not have known through absorption. I knew it only through time. Through patience. Through allowing change to happen. She felt Marcus's hand find hers again, holding tight. I have not dissolved into him. He has not dissolved into me. But we understand each other in ways that go beyond mere knowledge. The entity was silent for a long moment. The figures within it stirred, their expressions shifting from peace to something more complex. This understanding, it said finally, it is incomplete, by your own admission. Yes, always incomplete. That's the point. Marcus squeezed Kiraveth's hand. We spend our whole lives trying to understand each other, and we never fully succeed. But the yet trying, the reaching, the failing, the reaching again, that's where meaning lies. Do not comprehending. Then let us show you. He held up his other hand, showing the neural link device, not absorption. Exchange. You give us something. We give you something. Both sides choose what to share. Both sides walk away separate but changed. This is... inefficient. This is love, Marcus said quietly. This is friendship. This is alliance. Every good thing we have, we build through this inefficiency. The entity rippled, debated, considered. And then, slowly, a tendril of living darkness extended toward the ship. Isyo, Useshti said. The exchange lasted 17 minutes. Later, Kiraveth would struggle to describe it. The entity shared its origin, billions of years of solitary existence in the void. A consciousness born from cosmic accident, desperate for connection, but knowing only one method. It showed them the loneliness of totality, the horror of understanding everything and being understood by nothing. In return, they shared something simpler. Marcus shared the moment at Outpost Kethron, the child in his arms, the blood on his hands, the ridge where he knew death was waiting and chose to act anyway. Kiraveth shared the moment in the corridor, when she had lowered her scope and felt something shift in her understanding of the universe. They shared 3 months of walking, talking, learning. The small jokes that didn't translate. The silences that communicated more than words. The trust built through hundreds of choices, none of them absolute, all of them meaningful. This is... small, the entity said. Yes, Kiraveth agreed. But it continues. It grows. You are not the same beings you were. No, tight. We've changed. Because of each other. And this change. You welcome it? It terrified me, she admitted. I was a weapon. I knew what I was. Learning to be something else meant losing the certainty of that identity. But you chose it. I chose. Yumel. The rest followed. The entity was silent. Around them, the absorbed beings stirred, their faces showing something new. Conflict. Struggle. The first hints of individual expression. We have taken so many, the entity said. Seeking connection through completion. We did not know there was another way. There's always another way. Marcus's voice was gentle. The question is whether you're willing to try it. If we release them, they will fear us, hate us. There can be no exchange with those we have violating. No, Kiraveth said. There probably can't. But there can be exchange with us. With others you haven't harmed. A beginning. And those we have taken? Let them go. Let them choose whether to stay or leave. Some might surprise you. The entity shuddered. Something fundamental shifted in its structure. This is dead. Painful. This uncertainty. This incompleteness. Yes, Marcus said. Welcome to connection. They didn't save everyone. Of the hundreds the entity had absorbed, only 32 chose to leave, their minds fragmented, and their identities forever changed. The rest remained, but now as partners rather than components. The entity learning to honor boundaries, to ask rather than take. Hendricks and Morozov were among those who stayed. When Marcus asked why, their answer came in unison but was somehow still individual. We understand things now. About the universe. About ourselves. We can't go back to being what we were. But we can help bridge what comes next. The peace that followed was fragile. The Coalition and Velorian Council both wanted to destroy the entity, eliminate the threat. But Marcus and Kiraveth argued, testified, demonstrated. Slowly, painfully, the possibility of coexistence took shape. 1 year later, the first official exchange occurred. A volunteer human, a volunteer Velorian, and an extension of Entity Omega, sharing memories across the void, building understanding one fragment at a time. Kira Vith watched from the observation deck of the Prometheus, Marcus beside her. "You know," he said, "when they assigned you to me, they called you a companion. A gesture of peace. I remember. They were right, in a way. Just not the way they intended." He turned to face her. "You're not a gesture. You're not a symbol. You're not even really a companion, not in the way they meant. What am I? Something else." He smiled, the same smile he had given the Ridge at Outpost Kethron, but now she understood it fully. Partner. Equal. Home. Kiriveth thought about the word. Home was not a place. Home was not a species or a culture or a designation. Home was the feeling of standing beside someone who had seen you at your most dangerous and chose to trust anyway. "Home," she repeated. "Unless you prefer first, shadow cultural liaison and tactical advisor, I prefer." She considered. "I prefer something else. It leaves room for growth." Marcus laughed, and the sound was warm, and they stood together at the viewport, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient lonely entity was learning to ask instead of take. Somewhere out there, two species that had tried to destroy each other were building something new. And here, in this moment, two beings who should have been enemies had become proof that connection was possible. Not through dissolution, but through the patient, painful, beautiful process of choosing each other, again and again. Kiriveth had been the best sniper in Velorian space. She had held death in her hands with perfect precision. But the shot she hadn't taken had changed everything. And she would make the same choice. Lower the scope, offer trust, become something else, every time.